is Blacklisted News Radio. It's the 7th day of June 2015. My name is Doug Owen. It's good to be with you. What a crazy week. That's what we do here. We have a week in review. We talk about some of the most interesting and most commented on stories of the week that you can find at blacklistedradio.com, as well as our hub where we curate tons of news daily, blacklistednews.com. Interactive chat room, lots of accoutrements, features, free on the house for you there at the website. And yeah, well, this week we had a lot of coverage of Caitlyn Jenner. I hate to talk about it. I know that some of you are probably inundated, overwhelmed, confused, irritated, probably mostly irritated by the discussion around Caitlyn Jenner. And I think that we should just talk about it for a moment. Not because it's a fine distraction away from Jade Helm or from explosions rocking Michigan neighborhoods as this urban military drill was kicking off this week. Other things like false flag terrorism that has been exposed at the TED Talks. I mean, there's some really interesting stuff that's happening, but Caitlyn Jenner dominated headlines. And I want to talk about it because one of the things that is transforming this country, the United States of America, and the Western world, is cultural Marxism. If you're not familiar, it's a term. You should look it up. But to summate, basically cultural Marxism is creating new words. Newspeak is another buzzword term that kind of defines what we're seeing today. And that is a changing of the context and a changing of really definitions that have stood the test of time, to the point where casual conversation about important issues and some that are very non-important almost cannot happen freely because people are so worried about offending people. I had to go to this long training course. It was a week long. And he was talking about, and some of you in the corporate world probably have to deal with this too, and go to these training sessions, but it was about dealing with new workers, the sensitivities of the new workers that are coming into the workplace, into your jobs and businesses, and adapting to this climate of sensitivity. It's really just shocking to me to see how little backbone and I think just the fact that so many of these companies are willing to bend over to this climate. It used to be that you adapted to the workforce. Okay, the job that needed to be done was there for the taking. If you wanted to do that job, you had to follow criteria that was set for you by the company. But anyway, it's surreal, and some of you people probably have had to deal with this, and it's really Orwellian that we're kind of falling into this trap where we're not allowed to talk about anything without this awareness we're supposed to have about sensitivity and not hurting people's feelings. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Caitlyn Jenner, a man that Mr. Bruce Jenner, that won lots of gold medals for the Olympics, and Olympian who was married to the Kardashian family, and he's a reality TV star. His family became very famous because his daughter or stepdaughter had sex with a rap star, and there was a pornographic adult film that was propagated on the internet, and Kim Kardashian became famous because she has a big butt. Now, I know that to some people outside the country, and people, a lot of you listening are just like, what? Why are we even talking about this? What does it matter? Well, it does matter because these are completely media-created celebrities. They don't stand on their own. They don't have any talent. Not to say that I mean, Bruce Jenner has more talent than the rest of the family combined, but he's got his own issues apparently. And anyway, the media has gone on and on and on about this transformation, sex change, change of identification as a woman, maybe, that Bruce Jenner now, who wants to be called Caitlyn Jenner, or identified as Caitlyn Jenner, and to really explain this and the different caveats of this story, it's a mind melt for sure. To many people, I think it's simple enough. Do whatever makes you happy. And that's how I have always been. I don't need to understand you. You don't need to understand me or any of my belief systems. It's okay. I mean, we become friends because we have common interests and we enjoy each other's company. We become co-workers because we need to pay our bills and we need to do a job. And the job is what should be paramount, always. And to me, the only reason that we have to have all these identifications and different classes is because we have a system that is creating special people that have special victimhoods. For whatever reason, you're X, Y, or Z, you might be one of these protected classes of people that are identified by the government, that have special privileges and special rights and get to go to special clubs because you are a victim of the oppressive state, which just in and of itself seems pretty silly to me. But that's really what I have identified as this very dramatic climate of fear about talking about these kind of issues. Not that I really care what people do in their own bedrooms. I think that, to go back to my earlier point, the state is the one that defines this. It's really insurance companies and giving you legal permissions and rights and health coverage rights that most people look to the state for some kind of validity to their marriages. I don't understand why you need the state other than for those reasons to validate your marriage, or why you need my validation. Two guys, a guy that identifies as a woman, or Bruce Jenner here, who has transformed in a lot of ways to look like a woman, but still wants to have sex with women. Does that make him a lesbian? I don't know. I don't care. I think a lot of you are in the same boat. It's like, it's fine. If you're an anarcho-libertarian type like me, my God, when it comes to the state intervening between what you and your God and your pastor and your friends and family consider marriage, then that, whatever. I mean, you don't have to have my validation, but you do have to have the state's validation. And that's really the problem. You have to have the state validate what you're doing, the people you have sex with, what kind of bathroom selection you are afforded. Can I go into the girls' bathroom? Can I go into the boys' bathroom? If you look at some of the European cultures, that was kind of a culture shock for me being in the military and realizing that Germans, the females and the males, use the same restrooms and showering facilities. You have a little bit of discretion. Women weren't just walking around nude, but you didn't have the divide between men and women. And I thought that was very odd. We don't have boys and girls rooms here. Oh man, this is kind of different. But they're just not as... It's a cultural thing. They're just not as worried about identifying you as a man or a woman or giving men and women different privileges. Now, I understand that we have lots of history. It's only a recent phenomenon that women were able to vote in this country, and I say that within the last 100 years. You look at the grand scale of time that humanity has been around. It's been pretty short-lived, and it's still short-lived for there's still plenty of places in this country, democratic allies of the United States that don't really give women rights. Saudi Arabia, and it's just one, many places that do not identify women as equals. I think that's kind of caveman-ish. It's definitely not a progressive, I hate to use that term, but it's just not a Western belief that there are differences in the ability for people to make decisions or have human value. I think that all humans have value. I don't think that Bruce Jenner or Caitlyn Jenner or the man that now identifies as the lesbian that now identifies as Caitlyn Jenner has any more rights than you or any less rights. Can people make fun of you? Absolutely. That's the way the world works. It should work that way. We should be able to be ignorant, be bigoted, be sexist, be racist, and at the end of the day, it's those kind of things. If they hamper your job, and being a crappy person is going to hinder your ability to have friends and probably do a lot of things in the world, just because. You limit opportunities by hating everyone. That's fine. You should be able to do that. That's what this country was founded on, and that's what this week I saw many people forget. And it's this slide towards a cultural Marxism, this slide towards corporate fascism that bothers me so. So I can only speak to my opinion on the matter, and that is that people are very caught up in being able to identify themselves. It's very cliquish, and maybe it's something that's not just a government conspiracy to make you stupid and make you talk about crap that means nothing, although it is, but it's also very human. Trying to identify people and put ourselves in little cliques and groups and to find people that have like interests and then to mate with them is very primal. You can go to any playground and you'll find kids that have separated themselves. Not to say that they all just, isolate themselves from one another, but you find people that find common interest, common cultures. They like to, congregate, and you find this huge push for diversity. And there's nothing wrong with being diverse. I think that my family's very diverse. We've brought many cultures into our own home that we embrace. My wife is Hispanic, so is her family. Second generation Mexican Americans. Her father, or grandfather rather, fought in World War II. But very, very rooted in at least traditional Catholicism. My family. Pretty much pacifist Methodists, very, very white and milquetoast. Not that they're not a fun crowd, but just, we're just kind of boring white people that, mildly believe in Jesus. We mildly go to church every once in a while. But definitely two different cultures that have come together, and we have, you see a lot of that. That's what Tex-Mex is all about, merging cultures and how that happens. A lot of people are offended by that. A lot of people think that, cultures coming together and finding the best out of both worlds and putting those together and putting those forward is, dangerous. I've met people that, even today, still kind of frown upon an interracial marriage. Although it's odd because it seems that there is much more backlash and general disgust for people that have, black, white, interracial marriages. With Hispanics and other, even Asians, it doesn't seem to be nearly as striking to people. It's not nearly as shocking. And I don't know if that's just because it's less of a culture shock, or you have similar cultures that seem to be easier to meld, to more common interests. But those are kind of anthropological things that I think about, a lot when I see these Caitlyn Jenner stories, because and I know a lot of you are rolling your eyes listening to this, but I think it's a discussion worth having, because it goes right back to the state needing to validate your lifestyle. Okay, gay people can be gay and they can get married. What stopped you before? What stopped you from being able to hold a ceremony? Oh, well, it's not recognized by the state. It's not recognized by my insurance company. So the question becomes, is the state God? Because if you're one of these people, and God bless you, I totally understand where you're coming from if you're one of them, but if you're one of these people that really gets offended by the state giving that special privilege, maybe it's a write-off, oh, you're married, you can file together jointly, although that's not a big tax benefit. Actually, it's really disadvantageous to you to be married. My wife and I have thought about getting divorced and just filing separately, because we would do so much better. All the things she could qualify for by herself, if she wasn't married to a middle-class white guy, would be it would be a big boon to our. I mean, we would do really, really well just by getting divorced. So you look at the incentives for getting married. A lot of people, especially in the gay community, they pine after that. I'm on the other side of that, thinking, wow, what could I do if we got divorced? How much more could we not having a combined income could do? Not to mention all of the different aspects to these privilege systems and the state giving you handicaps. And just like when you go to the golf course, if you're a really bad golf player, you can get a handicap. You get a couple mulligans. You might get, they make it more competitive because you're a bad player to another player. Those kind of things are happening today, and the government is trying to be the arbiter of making everyone equal. Now, if you think that they can make everyone equal, and you believe that that is something that's really the government's job, you're one of these people that are really, really excited about the government not granting gay people marriage rights. I'm one of the people that thinks that the government shouldn't grant people special rights. And that's why it's very hard for especially liberals and even many conservatives. They get mind melted by Caitlyn Jenner and looking at this thing that doesn't make a lot of sense to them. And it's not, I say thing because, that's how people look at it. I mean, I think you're a human being. If you want to have sex with girls or boys or, men or women, as long as it's consensual and legal and of age and, on the up and up, mostly the big thing is consensual. That's fine. It's none of my business. It's none of my business what you do in your bedroom. But when the state gives people, based on their gender, special privileges and rights, you're going to have problems. You're going to have a lot of them. Is it such a big deal to have men and women in bathrooms? How confusing is that? Are you going to have people that abuse this privilege to look at other women in the bathroom? I think about this, and yeah, I mean, it might be a little weird to have somebody that's a man that looks a man that looks like a woman that looks like a man in the bathroom with you in a female bathroom. But they all have stalls and doors. It's a whole different world if they're opening your stall. That's a violation. That's assault, sexual assault. So anyway, enough about Caitlyn Jenner. We didn't really talk about Caitlyn Jenner. We talked about the identification and the special privileges of government. We'll talk about a lot more, some of the current events, and take your phone calls. Much more on the other side. It's Blacklisted Radio. Stay tuned.
But the politics are too convenient.
Ah, yes, the politics are always too convenient. I was a teenage anarchist. But when you look at the fundamental problems that we have today, most of them are because we make things overly complicated. The financial apocalypse that is on the precipice. Why is it so hard for so many people to understand, and why is it such an amalgamation of just lawyer speak and this very, very confusing world of derivatives and complicated financial instruments? It's because it's complicated. It's because average people that engage in business can't understand the penalties or the rewards, the profits that they may enjoy by entering into a contract with the state or with a private corporation. The more complicated you make things, the worse they usually are. So anyway, I talk about these issues because I think if you want people to be able to do the right thing, and that's what most people want. There's some of you criminals out there that probably get bored with this show that enjoy making things. You enjoy scamming people. You send the Nigerian scam emails to people. I mean, some of you out there enjoy finding a sucker and taking them for the ride, but the majority of us just want to do the right thing. I mean, even if you are appalled by what your tax dollars do, most people just want to pay the government the correct amount of money that they owe. And how complicated could that be? How many Americans commit crimes on a daily basis that they're unaware of because the system that we live under is so complicated? So you want to make people more accountable, you have to have a system that they understand. You can't hold somebody accountable if they got into a contract they don't understand. Somebody's a predator, somebody's the prey, somebody's a profiteer, somebody's a victim. So that's how it goes. All right, to the phone lines we go, and we will talk with Terry in occupied El Paso. What's going on, Terry?
Occupied. Well, you know what? Now that you mentioned that, my wife came back. She's Mexican, and we got a Mexican girl, and they came back about 2 weeks ago, and they woke me up. While I was sleeping, they woke me up, and they said, "You won't believe what we just saw." I said, "What?" And they explained to me that they'd never seen tanks before on a railroad car.
Huh.
And I guess it was like 1,000 of them or something.
Oh,
and, yeah, that's pretty weird. Coming out of Mexico. Now all right, so anyway.
Coming out of Mexico or going into Mexico?
Coming out of Mexico, tanks.
Wow.
And then I live right here by Fort Bliss, and yesterday I was making a left turn on a bus. I was riding a bus. We were making a left turn, but we had to stop because these military vehicles were making right-hand turns, and there was about 20 of these vehicles, and the sun was in their face. I could see every single one of the passengers in those vehicles, and if it was an American convoy, you'd see blacks, whites, Mexicans, whatever.
Right.
But these were all the same color. They were just tan. That's all I can say. And
so, what do you think? They think they're Middle Easterners, or
they were not from the United States?
Right. Think they were foreigners? Yeah. That's pretty common. I mean, as odd as it sounds, the U.S. brings in foreign nationals to do urban military drills. Private contractors bring in tons of foreign military to train them on their purchases of military equipment that they use. So it's no telling what's happening out there in El Paso.
Any of us can imagine. Like if you were living in Germany, for example, where we've been there for how many years, they would probably feel a little weird, but it's not necessarily anything ominous. Let me try to get to my point about Jenna.
Caitlin. Caitlin. Is that who you're talking about? Hold right there. You know what? You have to take a quick break. This is a short segment, Terry. I'll let you talk about whoever you like on the other side. Don't go anywhere. It's Blacklisted Radio. All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. BlacklistedRadio.com is the website. We're talking to Terry in El Paso, and he has mentioned that there are lots of military vehicles, lots of things going on around the area, lots of interesting things happening, and he wanted to talk about Jenna, Caitlin, whoever it was. Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, like I said, I refuse to go this Caitlin route. While you started this program, I went on to Google and I looked at how they actually do that operation. What they do is they take the penis. I'm sorry, I hope I can say that on the radio. They take the penis and they slice
it open. It's very medical, so it's okay.
Yeah, okay. They slice it open from the top. They remove the core, and then they stitch it back together and push it back up inside, close to the prostate gland, which, women don't have prostates, only guys do, and it's a pleasure center for men. And this is the kind of thing that, and then they, therefore, of course, create an artificial vagina, and they try to take the scrotum and form it into something that resembles labia. And so what we're talking about here is, in my personal opinion, is a complete pervert that has, it's like these people that say, well, I was born John, but call me Jonathan. Or I'm Mike, but I want to be Michael. It is so weird, and we're not going to begin to accept this because our kids are going to start kind of following in if we accept this. It is so weird and off the hook that we just can't go there. We can't go there as a society. We cannot do it. And it is, well, I guess I've pretty much said what I had to say.
Well, I don't disagree. I think that what we have here today, it's pretty perverted. I don't even know if he's going to be having sex with men. I think that he's still interested, or she is interested in women. I don't know. That's what they say, but my God, who knows?
To have sex with men or with some artificial man, like in the form of a vibrator or something, it's just so off the hook. And what I heard him say today on television, I don't have a television, but I download television programs. Right. And he said, I am a woman in every sense of the word. I would like to say to the man, I'm sorry, dude, you cannot, look, you are a man. You can't be anything but a man. You said for all intents and purposes. Well, your intent was to be a man, and your purpose was to be a man. And for you to change that is really going over the cliff. You are changing God's intention for you. Sure. And, I guess really, sure, I don't want to talk anymore. I'll probably get...
I don't blame you, yeah. Sometimes you get to the point, and I appreciate the call there, Terry. Yeah, you just, there's nothing more to really say about it. And all I can say is that it's very confusing, and it is a thing that people are going to do weird things to their body. We're in an age where you can enhance your body. The chances that most human beings will be somehow electronically, digitally enhanced by 2050, by 2100, we're already there. And so beyond sexuality, beyond all of the other human, primal, carnal desires that will be delivered in a lot of different ways through, medically attaching and detaching and changing people. I do agree with Terry that, this is really something that's in your mind. There are some cases where, people, have both genitals, and parents have to make a decision, boy or girl, and sometimes that decision doesn't go right. But by and large, I think it's a lot of the confusion of the mind and the... That's right. If you're born a eunuch or something, then your parents might want to make that decision, but when you're, 20, 40, 60 years old,
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your show tonight.
Hey, I appreciate your call, Terry, and your perspective and your opinion. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a whole different world out there, and as we find ourselves in this, it's almost a financial gap where the haves will be able to advance their abilities through technology, and the have-nots, the people that won't be able to update themselves. And yeah, I look at where we're at today. I mean, if you have lots of money, you can go to Ivy League schools. You can make great connections with other, financial elites' children, and you'll be able to, become a venture capitalist. You'll become like Joe Biden's son, who's a cokehead that got kicked out of the military, joined the Navy when he was 38, and now he's heading up a Ukrainian consortium, fracking company. You have those opportunities, whereas kids in the inner city that have no money do not. If you have lots of money, you can afford to buy Louis Vuitton handbags, and if you don't, you can maybe buy yourself a knockoff. Those kind of things are going to be even more. I mean, because if you look at the majority of people out there that are in a Bruce Jenner situation, how many people can afford to have that kind of surgery? How many people can afford to enhance their bodies? Because one of the things that I thought was, interesting is that this guy didn't just change his body, he got a facelift. Okay, and now they're saying, well, the Obamacare and financial companies, or even maybe your company, is on the hook. Here in Austin, the city council will pay for your sex change. If you want a sex change, you work for the city, you're a government worker, and you want to become a woman, the government is going to sell that to you as a Benny. Now, it's extremely expensive. Not just anybody out there that wants to become a woman can do this. And so you talk about making it complex and really creating, this monster. You're going to have people that want government jobs because they want to go through these procedures, these $100,000+ procedures. You're going to be paying for it. I have to, buy healthcare, or being forced by the IRS to comply with this Affordable Care Act. I'm paying for Caitlin to change her body, and that's why you're paying upwards of what? I have no idea. I mean, the prices in just the last 10 years, the last decade, for just about every medical procedure, hospitalization across the board has just skyrocketed. And these things, I mean, it's not to say that you shouldn't be able to fulfill your dream. I mean, I'd like to fulfill a lot of dreams, and they don't include me changing my body. It doesn't give me some special right. I mean, there's a lot of things I would like to do that I just can't afford to do, but you see this climate where people are afraid to say, hey, that's wrong. That's not fair. That's actually completely, an example of inequality where people that want to change their bodies can get a job or get the insurance company to pay for it, whereas I can't get other modifications to my body because I'm a heterosexual white male. It's crazy. One of the things I saw, some of you probably have as well, I'm not going to play the clip, but there was a lot of attention brought to Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld, famous comedian, who gave a speech about avoiding performing at politically correct colleges, saying that, that just to paraphrase, that going to colleges, it's not worth it because it's a gotcha society, and if comedy is supposed to be risque. It's supposed to be controversial. It's one of the few platforms that we still have today where you can speak more truth to power because it's comedy than you can on a podcast like this, although it is somewhat comedic, the topics that we talk about. I do consider this to be a form of entertainment, not infotainment. But basically, he said, I don't do it. Comedians these days, they won't go to college campuses because these have become epicenters of political correctness and people that feel like victims, and they're just looking for something. I mean, I see it all the time. People critiquing this show. Oh my God, you believe this? Or you said this one thing. I've been listening to you for 10 years, Doug, and you said this one thing that just infuriated me, and I can never understand you or listen to your show again. And you realize how hypersensitive people are today. And it would be one thing if people were hypersensitive over things that mattered. Hypersensitive over, I don't know, the financial elite being able to buy their way out of going to prison. That's something you should be irate about. That's something that should overly offend you. It offends me to the inner core. There's a lot of things that I see that offend me beyond belief that I don't even maybe even broach in this show, because if I just started going on a tangent, I would probably end up using 4-letter words and just being somewhat manic because it infuriates me so. But this faux anger, faux rage over comments. Tracy Morgan saying that if he found out his son was gay, he'd stab him in the stomach or something to that effect. I mean, obviously, he loves his son. He would not stab him in the stomach. People, all my, and then it's the corporate pressure because of the political correctness, because of this cultural Marxism. And that's really where it's at. I see this over and over again. It just makes me roll my eyes. Google's censoring me. I cannot. The alternative media is being censored. No, it's because you're looking for corporate sponsors that are overly sensitive and will bow down to these calls for boycotts by these very irate minorities. It's really the irate minority that has the most attention and usually control political discussions. There's plenty of examples of that. But anyway, he said he avoids that, and that his children are being indoctrinated. He's seen this. His kids use buzzwords like, "Oh, Daddy, you are a sexist. Daddy, you are this, you are that." He's saying, I see my own children, that they're using these buzzwords. They have no understanding of what they mean, and they're just trying to identify me in different ways and put labels on me to kind of, to dismiss what Daddy says, because Daddy's just an old crazy bigot. Daddy just, he's not in touch. Daddy's, he doesn't understand. And the sad thing is that most of these people that are so adamant, they have no understanding of what any of this means. Anyway, we will continue. I have a few other things. But anyway, I just thought it was a really, refreshing perspective, or at least an honest perspective from somebody who is a comedy king, Jerry Seinfeld, as to, what he sees happening in society and with his own children. To the phone lines we go. Jane in Baltimore is on line 3. Jane, what's up?
Hey, Doug, you want to talk about a sick carnival freak show?
Yeah.
Anabolic steroid use among professional wrestlers. Let's forget American baseball, right? Because after all, that's officially illegal, and they test for that now. But when Ted Turner took professional wrestling into mainstream television, I guess it was he called it the New World Order.
Yeah, there was a group of the New World Order. It was WWF.
Yeah, right. But then I think the New World Order might have been a spin-off of it.
Right. Yeah, but Hulk Hogan and a couple other guys were the New World Order.
I saw these, and let me tell you, if there's any institution that is absolutely saturated with anabolic steroid freakishness, it's professional wrestling. Of course, that didn't bother the citizens of the state of California. I mean, they turned around and elected an anabolic steroid model, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I like to get high and have sex with my housewife. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the body, that whole body, but you want to talk about a bunch of freaks.
That
whole body. They are crammed with steroids, and everybody knew that Schwarzenegger had pumped himself up with these droids. And
they didn't care. He's a Hollywood superstar. That is much bigger. You know what really freaks me out, though, Jane, is the women. the women that have like worked their breasts off and they now have pecs like man pecs, and they've just I guess it's.
Well, is that any worse? Is that any worse than the women who apparently there's an epidemic of women now who feel like they have to run out and get silicone breast implants if their man or their husband doesn't think their breasts are big enough?
Well,
I actually know. Yeah, I know. I know somebody, a Marine actually, and I overheard him telling these other guys how he was trying to talk his wife into getting implants.
Oh yeah, funny enough, I knew a guy that was in the Navy. He bought his wife breast implants, and as soon as he bought them, she found that she got a whole new set of attention from many new suitors, and she immediately left him. So it was funny. He wanted the breasts, and so did everybody else. And she found out once everybody else wanted her breasts that he wasn't really that appealing anymore. So it was kind of
things like the Bruce Jenner narrative. They're outliers. They're like sort of on the extreme fringe. The only reason people are talking about it even is because the media has instructed them to talk about it.
Right.
This is important now. Now this is what you should talk about. But proportionally, statistically, when you look at things like bodybuilding, professional wrestling, professional sports in general, breast implants, plastic surgery, plastic facial cosmetic surgery, when you look, let's talk about Viagra. You want to talk about something sick? How many American males now depend...
Now. I don't know, Jane. We might have some Viagra listeners out there. That might be my demographic.
If Terry wants to worry about the future of American society, that's what he should be looking at. He should be looking at the statistical norm, not the outlying.
He has Botox injected in his face. Don't look to him.
Well, take a look at John Kerry if you want to see what Botox is.
Yeah. Look at Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she can't even laugh or smile anymore. She's had so many surgeries. She's just like, it's just so weird.
Anyway, just to conclude, the Bruce Jenner thing, that's the least of the freakishness out there. That's really pretty tame compared to most of what goes on.
That's true, Jane. Hold right there. I'll bring you back on the other side. Final segment around the corner. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. Final segment. A few of the story headlines before we go back to the phone lines. We got Mike in Minnesota. We got Jane in Baltimore. Maybe time for you. Wanted to mention that there's a really interesting TED Talk. I guess we're now at the point where we have crossed the Rubicon. The FBI is responsible for more terrorism plots in the United States than any other organization, more than Al-Qaeda, more than Al-Shabaab, more than the Islamic State, more than all of them combined. Really interesting TED Talk, not that it's something that we haven't talked about. Trevor Aronson, Executive Director of the Florida Center for Investigative Reporting, author of The Terror Factory Inside the FBI's Manufactured War on Terrorism, notes that the United States government, through the FBI, has spent over $100,000 per sting operation, and that they themselves, and he highlights it, they have spent lots of money, lots of time creating patsies, finding almost retarded patsies to blame. When they came up with the plot, they had the money, they had the means, they had the explosives, they had the connections, and they found somebody willful idiots to follow. And this being at TED is pretty big because Ted's highly regarded. And also a really interesting piece from Star Wars, George Lucas explaining that the whole Star Wars trilogy was really a take at what was happening in America, false flag terrorism, leading us into a devolving dictatorship. So check those out, blacklistednews.com. Back to Jane real quickly. Jane, final thoughts on the world we live in and the freak shows that we see on the TV?
Freak shows are diversions. There's plenty of them. We could go on. We could talk about surrogate birth and artificial insemination and turkey basters and everything else, but it's about priorities. And if you've got a population out here that's so dumbed down and so tabloided and so trashified, it's had its culture so garbaged up that it doesn't even know what's important anymore. And so the media tells the culture what to talk about. Got a real problem. And that's our problem.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, have a good one. I always enjoy hearing you.
Hey, thanks, Jane. Always enjoy hearing from you as well. All right, so Mike hung up. That's okay. We only have a few moments here anyway. One of the things that we've kind of highlighted in the show is that things are distractions. One of the stories that I thought would definitely be on the radar, the Danes are revolting. If you haven't seen this, it's because Caitlyn Jenner and other freak shows have taken over the headlines for the week. We have the G7 meeting coming up, and it's really interesting power plays by the U.S. and Russia and that proxy war kind of playing out. G7, the FIFA scandal, the whole media war, the PSYOP against Russia is somewhat failing, and we're seeing that some of these might be the last throes of the American empire when it comes to trying to isolate other countries. You have two things that come out of that. You either have economic hardships, which I think you have seen in Russia, at least temporarily over the last year, but you also have new found friendships and new systems being created to subvert that. That is what is happening with Russia. But if you didn't hear about this, in Frederiksborg, Denmark, 10 official cars from the tax administration office were set on fire, destroyed in an overnight protest, as Extra Bladet reports. Police received notification Wednesday night, 3:09 a.m. The tax administration offices were on fire. So people are getting upset. It's not just people in the U.S. The Danes, who are usually pretty pacifist, are starting to see some real anger at the state and the system, and that is good. That is good. That's the proper direction you should aim your frustrations and angers at. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'll be back next week for another live edition of Blacklisted News Radio. Until then, take care.